And I think we're live.
I can still see scheduled at the top of the screen, so I would assume we're not. From StreamYard, my experience has been that until it actually shows live, we're
It's
not
saying
live
on my screen.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, it's showing scheduled on mine. So excuse me, everybody, if we are already live. I don't have the latest information on my screen. Welcome to the first episode of the SEO Traffic Show. Slight hiccup at the start, which is the way that all the best shows.
Oh no, and I think we may have lost Jason's internet connection. So I'm just going to jump in whilst we wait for Jason to reconnect. Hopefully that won't be too long. But as Jason was just introducing, this is one of the first episodes of the SEO Traffic Show through Travelpayouts in conjunction with SEMrush. I'm Tristam Jarman. I'm your presenter, and Jason, who's just disappeared due to internet connections, is your host. In today's episode, what we're going to do is...
Keep going, Tristam. You're doing a great job.
We've got you back, Jason. Back to you.
Yeah, welcome to the first episode. Starting off with a little hiccup there, but we're ready to roll. The connection in the south of France. I'm in the south of France right now, and the connection wasn't great for a couple of minutes. Where are you, Tristam?
I am based in Brighton, and at the moment we've got a heat wave, so I'm being truly British and complaining about the slightly hot weather. And I imagine most of you tuning in at the moment probably live in warmer climates than I do, but just, yeah, being a Brit, we do love to sort of complain and chat about the weather. So, yeah, in Brighton at the moment.
Right, okay. Well, I'm in the south of France and nobody complains about the weather down here. So everyone in the audience, welcome to the show. Really pleased to have you here. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to look at different websites, and Tristam's going to run them through his super expert analysis and tell the site owners, first of all, what's wrong, what they can do better, how they can improve, how they can push their SEO. And we're going to make sure that the advice that he gives and the advice that I give is applicable to most other websites. So even if your website isn't being analyzed today, you'll still get lots out of the program. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat. We'll try and answer them with as many as we can. During the show, if we can answer them during the show, then reach out to Tristam and he can probably answer them later on social media somewhere. Exactly. I can also help with that. The show itself, you can watch it and replay afterwards. So even if you miss something Tristam said, or if he's speaking too quickly, or I'm speaking too quickly for that matter, you can watch it again and you won't miss out on anything. So remember that you can watch it again. Don't freak out if you're not keeping up with what's going on at all times. Now, we're going to do this show regularly. So this time we're going to be talking about specifically blogging websites. So we're going to be looking at kind of the blogging aspect of it. Further down the line, in other episodes, we're looking at other types of sites. We're going to group it by type of site. So each week you'll know what kind of site we're talking about and whether the episode is really going to be helpful to you or not. But I suspect that all the episodes are going to be useful for everybody, because SEO is a massive problem that we need to sort out. We need to get better. And every time you get one thing better, you improve a little bit more. And it's like, I think it was the British cycling team, and they were saying, we've all got the same equipment. All the Olympic cycling teams have got the same equipment. The difference is in the tiny details. And some of the stuff that Tristam's going to show today isn't tiny details. Some of it is, but all of it goes towards making your SEO better. A quick reminder or a quick information that there's a competition going on. It's your affiliate IQ with Who Wants to Be an Affiliate Millionaire? No, Affiliaire. Which is a great name, even though I can't say it. I've played it. You can get in a draw to win $50, $25, $10, and everybody who joins in gets a 14-day free trial with SEMrush. I played it, and we'll see on the second screen here. Sorry, excuse me, that's the third screen, that I'm already in for $50. So anybody who wants to play now is up against me for that $50. I did it really slowly, but I got all the answers right. So questions in the chat box. We'll send you the recording and slides soon after the webinar, and this webinar is being recorded. All the stuff I've already said, and now we're going to meet the speakers. It's me, the Brand SERP guy from Kalicube.pro. I specialize in Brand SERPs. A Brand SERP is what appears in Google when somebody searches your brand name. I also work on knowledge panels If you don't know what they are, they're on the right-hand side on desktop when you search a brand name or another entity that informs you about it. And I work on triggering those and getting them up there for companies, people, and products. And Tristam is the co-founder at Purple Smudge, which is a name I love. And you were telling me where you found that name. You've had it for years, haven't you?
Yeah, so just I won't take the long story I gave you yesterday, but in short, when creating the company, like with a lot of companies, try to come up with a cool name. And I remembered that I'd registered this domain name several years ago before starting this company, and presented it to my business partner. She said she loved it, and the rest is history. So yeah, Purple Smudge.
Brilliant stuff. I actually wrote a song for kids about colours. And it goes, when you take a splodge of yellow, orange, no, hang on, and you take a splodge of blue and you take a splodge of red, put them both together, what colour do you get? Purple, purple.
No. That should be our theme tune then.
Purple. Well, it's a theme tune for today, like it or not. I've been saving that as a surprise for you, but I forgot the word. So, Purple Smudge, you're a digital agency in the UK, and you've been in SEO for years and years, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been running the company for the past 4 years, but it's probably 10-15 years been in digital marketing, and then sort of in the last 10 years really focusing on sort of SEO and analytical side of things, you know, and technical SEO. And then my business partners are head of PPC and paid advertising. So yeah, I think we're in for an exciting session today, people.
I think we are. You know your stuff. I've been in SEO for over 20 years, which makes me feel very old. And I actually started in the year Google was incorporated. So I've been running alongside Google for the whole time, and it's been a phenomenally interesting journey. But we're not going to talk about the history of the internet. We're going to talk today about the 3 websites we've chosen, which are, and I will name them, findmehere.blog, Bonjour LaFrance.com, which I love because I'm in France, and markmyadventure.com. And we're going to start by looking at the issues that are common to all 3 of them, so we don't have to repeat ourselves during the actual analysis. And the first one is the header menu navigation. One common problem, and I mean, I see this a lot in sites that I work with. The client comes to me and their header navigation is illogical for users and unhelpful for Google, or vice versa. What are the problems here that you were seeing?
It's just sort of
according to Grammarly, vice versa.
So that's my Google phone waking up because I just said its name.
Really, it's coming in and looking at it as a logical process. You know, a user needs, well, when we go to Google, we ask questions and we want to find out information. So when we land on a website, we would expect to be able to answer that question or find that information out that we want. And what I've started to find with these particular websites and many more is, you know, people create content and then they create a menu. And then sometimes I feel that content kind of gets a little bit of, you know, it's like a 2-headed monster, starts to grow and grow. And because you've already created that menu originally, or you tack on a new sort of header in the menu, things start to get a little bit out of control. And so what we will be looking at today is kind of how to look at all the information you've got on your website, have a look at your header navigation, and just see, can we get the user from A to B to C a little bit easier through your website? I don't want to give away too much more because there's quite a lot of exciting, fun things. I'm such a nerd that we'll be covering. Yeah, so that's kind of...
Yeah, sure. I mean, I find that a lot with header navigation is that people don't really think about what it is they're offering, how they should be organizing it, and how a user might want to use that top menu to actually get somewhere once they're inside the site. And it's a terrible mistake. If somebody comes to your site through Google, they find the answer to whatever the question they were asking. It's a real pity that when they look at that menu, it doesn't make sense to them and they don't keep going around your site because they can see that there are other answers to other questions that they might potentially want the answer to. So it's vitally important. The other one is page speed. This is pretty much every site in the world, isn't it, Tristam?
Yeah, it is. I don't think I've ever come across a website, and I'd love to know if anyone in the chat has come across a website that is completely 100% problem-free
I know one, actually. It's called Varvy.com. It's a guy called something Varvy. I can't remember what his first name is. And he spends his whole time, all his life, just trying to get the best performance. It's a very good resource. So if anyone wants to use that, he's got a phenomenal amount of information about all the different tips and tricks. And he takes it to a complete level that I would never imagine doing. I mean, it's real geek stuff. Varvy.com, Varvey.com. Sorry, carry on, Tristan.
But yeah, I mean, and then you kind of have a sliding scale of sort of website issues. You've got website page speed issues that I feel even someone with less knowledge of coding and, you know, general page speed issues, you will be able to fix some of these issues today. Common issues are oversized images or images that don't scale properly. So you've got, and kind of, if you can see on my camera here, images that are this big, but really only needed to be this big. So when it's loading, it could be loading it. I've seen them, you know, loading it sort of like 10, 20, 30 meg. And really you just needed a tiny picture because it was a thumbnail. So they're things you, the website owner, can physically do. If you've got a bit more developer knowledge, you can start stepping in there, all the way to, you know, probably you will need a developer to look at some of these issues just because that's their realm. But yeah, there's a lot of common issues. No website is, apart from the one that you've suggested that I've ever found, is kind of free from these issues. So
that's all the guy does. That he spends his entire life just optimizing his site for speed. I love that. So, and sorry, the question about page speed, and I think we tend to forget it, is obviously really important for Google, but it's also very important for the user. Can you give us a few words about the two sides of the coin where we're winning when we've got a fast site?
Yeah, so when was it? Back in 2010, the algorithm with Google changed. So, you know, faster loading pages, etc., became a ranking factor. So obviously the faster a page loads, awesome. You know, Google's loving that. But then what you need to be aware of is the user. As a person, as a human, we are slightly impatient. Maybe me more so than others. But there are some interesting stats I'll just grab. Should have had them.
Okay, so you've got your stats for the site speed. About it was. I mean, as a human being, when we're looking at the site, we look at it when we're sitting at home with our super duper fast fiber connection or ADSL, and we think that's fine, and we forget that some people are in the south of France on a cell phone, or there's a problem with the communication, or, for example, India is a great example of a country that has a phenomenal number of users, many of whom are still on 3G, which is quite a slow connection. And I did a podcast episode about the difference between 3G and 4G, and Google actually judges your site on a 3G connection because it wants to serve the people who don't have those great connections as well as it can. So even if your site appears fast to you because you're on 4G on your mobile or on ADSL, Google isn't judging you on that. It's judging you on the speed on a 3G connection because that is the lowest bar you need to get across. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And then from the user side of things, just a bit of insight and overview on page speed ranking and user friendliness. There's a study that's been done that it says a 1 second delay of page load time yields an 11% fewer page views, a 16% decrease in customer satisfaction, a 7% possible loss in conversions, and then in fact 40% of consumers expect websites to load in less than 2 seconds. That's 2 seconds. And 40% will abandon a page if it takes 3 or more seconds. So keep those figures in mind when we're having a look at, and I'll remind everyone when we're looking through some of the other information.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Well, I mean, I know I get very impatient, and ER's asking, what is the optimal page speed rank for mobile?
I don't know what the optimal page speed rank is, but from the information that we just discussed there, you ideally want it to be less than a second. Less than 2 seconds. I would probably go for around a second, but really depends on a number of factors.
I mean, you can use Google's tools to test and see what Google thinks, and if it thinks it's slow, it doesn't matter whether you think it's slow. Google's saying it's slow, and your SEO is suffering, full stop. And the other thing is, think as a person when you're navigating around the internet. Think at what point you get frustrated, and it's actually, for me, far below that 2 seconds. I don't want to wait 2 seconds for a page to load. It really makes me impatient.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right, and the third one is thin content. Now, I've put this screen up because I had to do the design for it. My design's great. Little drawing of some content on the right there, and that page is a really interesting page. It's actually part of a test I did to see how fast I could get a page indexed rather than a thin content test. But that's all the page contained, a title. And thin content is that. It's when there isn't actually any useful information on the page. Anybody visiting that page gets no information, no help, and it's not a solution to their problem or an answer to their question. That's an extreme example. Tell us a bit more about the thin content that we're looking at today.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect point, isn't it? And again, similar to the page speed issue example we were looking at, you have the two sides of the coin. You have the search engines and Google, and then you have the user. And so, as you were saying, you know, user comes along, there's very little that this page is serving, very little value that this page is serving anybody. So when Google then crawls that page and starts to ascertain this information as well, you know, what do we think is going to happen to this page and your site? And also be aware that if you have a number of thin content pages, Google's kind of wasting its time going through those pages. You know, you'll have, you know, an amount of crawl budget that Google will spend an amount of time crawling your website and finding new content. And then so pages like this example you've got here, Jason, it's wasting its time reading that. So yeah, it's a two-sided, two sides of the coin always. And then, you know,
sorry, one thing just to say, in fact, all 3 points have had that double-sided aspect, the user and Google. And everything we're doing in SEO, we obviously want to please Google. We want to make sure Google understands who we are, what it is we're offering, and which of our pages provides an answer or a solution to its users when they ask Google for the solution to their problem or the answer to their question. That's the first stage. So we need to communicate with Google. But once we have, if we do rank, when the person comes to the site, we must never forget, we do actually have to satisfy that user. And that double-sided aspect is something to bear in mind. It's useless ranking top if you don't provide the solution. Exactly. And if you do provide a solution, but your SEO is rubbish and Google doesn't understand that you've got the solution, you'll never rank top. So you need to get that balance. And there is a question that I found quite interesting. Would it be advisable to have a home page that loads quickly, Tristan?
I think it would be advisable to have your whole website that loads quickly. But yes, having your home page that loads quickly is a must. Obviously, we're going to dive into page speed in a little bit more depth than this. But you know, just a simple one. If you're looking at what your top pages are performing organically in Google Analytics, you can take the top 5 or 10 pages and run them through some of the tools we'll be looking at today and start to see, okay, actually is my homepage okay? It's working quite effectively, loads pretty quick. But these other ones, which are very popular and ranking quite well, you know, there are some issues and you resolve those issues and hopefully you'll see some positive change from that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant piece of advice. Take the most important pages in terms of the way they're performing today, because that's the easy win. And the homepage, whether it's an important page in terms of traffic right now or not, it's the entry door. Yeah. So it's really important that first entry is smooth, fast, and efficient, and isn't thin content, and it has a great navigation. Oh dear, I have actually finished now, and I'm going to pass over to you, Tristam. You're going to now go through the 3 sites we've chosen.
I am.
You're going to show us through SEMrush how you analyze the sites and give handy hints along the way. And I think that's brilliant because we can actually see how you use SEMrush to audit your client site. So if you can start sharing your screen, that would be absolutely wonderful. And we can take my screen off.
And then whilst I'm just doing this, I see there's a number of questions that have come through. So hopefully, cool, we can see that site. So there's a couple of questions that have come through, which what I'll do is I'll actually answer those as we get to the section. So Andre, you've asked about GT metric score, and Joe Journeys, you were asking, oh no, we've covered that one on the homepage loading quickly. Awesome. So the first site that we'll be looking at is Bonjour LaFrance. Hopefully that was a nice little French accent there. That
was an absolutely lovely French accent. It's almost as good as mine, but I've been here 30 years practicing.
You've got a little bit more experience than me. So Bonjour LaFrance. So as I navigate through a website, there appears to be a number of pages that can't easily be found. So just for you guys watching now, you should always only have pages a few clicks away. from where you started. Don't make people, you know, I think I can't remember what the stats are off the top of my head, but really we shouldn't be looking at any more so like 2-3 clicks into the site to be finding information. We want it to be clear, easy, and think of the user. Please, please, please think of the user. So I've landed on this website, Bonjour LaFrance, and I want to find out how I can travel around France. So I kind of create a little scenario for myself. Well, this is actually real. I have a VW camper van, my girlfriend and my dog. And so say that's my thought process coming to this website. So I don't necessarily want to find out about how to travel around France, say, but what I want to do is know where to stay, attractions, destinations. I like wine, so I want to find out where the best places to drink wine are, stuff like that. So as we have a look through the website, we've got travel, train, flights, ferries, cool, lodging. Okay, so that's about accommodation, attractions, interesting. We've got about France, and then we've got a news page as well. So as I say, this is the current layout of the navigation, but so the navigation menu could be modified to increase conversion, I feel, as it's not clearly labeled as much as it could be to help people navigate through the site. And so what I mean by that is, and to take a step back before I start going in and breaking down the navigation, what I tend to do is when I start with a client's website, have a good look through the website, click around, build scenarios, you know, sort of, you know, if it's an e-commerce site as an example, I want to purchase a product, so you have a task to complete. So I have a good look through the site. What I also do is I run a crawl, which I've done in SEMrush, and what I also do is I run a site search in Google, so this is using the search operator site, and what this does is this actually pulls up every page that is ranking for Bonjour LaFrance on Google, and that has actually gone up considerably since yesterday. But by the by, so I can now see all the pages that are ranking for Bonjour LaFrance. So as I said, what I would like to do is find festivals, attractions, things like that. So what I do is I kind of try to reverse engineer things. So I've got Burgundy festivals. Awesome, that sounds great. I want to find out more about that. So I would think that's under attractions personally. So I click through to attractions as an example. Wait for this to load. And what I'm getting is a whole bunch of information on tourist offices. So what's that saying to me? And airports. But I really want to know where this Burgundy festival is. So let's just click through. Let's see. Okay, so this is great. Loads of information of what I can do in the festival. So that's awesome. Oh, and then a little bit about wine events. Brilliant. But what I noticed in the breadcrumb is it's actually destinations to explore. And what I found was destinations to explore is actually under news. So then this takes us back to, are we serving the user the best navigation to help them navigate through your site? My initial feeling is no. So what I would, let me just grab this spreadsheet. So what I would do in this instance is rejig your navigation. And by doing this, I would open up something like Excel to help create your current website map. Look at all the pages you've got, and this can be done in a number of ways. So you can pull your information from Google Analytics, you can run a crawl through SEMrush, or as I showed you, you can run a site search in Google, or dependent on your size, not this one, you can manually just pull the information down. One of the sites we look at is kind of small with around 100 pages. So it makes this task easier to do that. So start to create what your website would look like in terms of the menu navigation. As you can see here, I've just made it very simple. And this is level 1 of what it currently looks like, of the original. So we've got lodging, attractions, about France, news. But what I'd like to change it to is travel, great, destinations. Because what I found through the website is there's heaps of information on Normandy, Burgundy, all these destinations. So I'm coming to the website and I wanted to look at maybe destinations I wanted to hit up. Now, I would suggest that you rejig your navigation to have destinations, then attractions. I change the word lodging to accommodation. Why I suggest that is because we kind of want to have a like a uniform way of talking. You know, when people go to like an e-commerce website, you'll look for the sales page, and it's generally called sale or clearance, something like that. It's not, you know, a more personalized term. So I would change lodging to accommodation, food and drink.
Just to cut in there, I mean, it's using common terms to the industry and using the vocabulary that your audience uses. And that's phenomenally important in all of your SEO work, is to think about what terms your audience uses for things, and stick to that. You want to talk to them in their language. You want to be empathetic to the way that they express themselves. That's the winning formula. We don't care how you want to say it. We care how they say it, because they're the people you want to serve. Carry on, sorry.
Exactly. So yeah, I you know, there's a lot of information on attractions, as we just looked at, accommodation, food and drink. There's information on that. About France, I think that's a great section, and it can stay there. And just keep the news section just for news, because if we jump back in here, in the news section, we've got latest news and info, awesome. But then we've got do it, see it, and enjoy, and snooze, eat and indulge. And that's where I would change those titles to things like food and drink, attractions, accommodation, just to use those more common terminologies.
And to be clearer, because I mean, what the website owner has done is that they've been quite inventive, and it's a little bit poetic. Poetic's great, but it's your poetry. It's not the poetry necessarily your audience will understand. And Google doesn't get poetry. Google likes facts. Google likes common vocabulary. Carry on.
Well, and it's kind of the you know, the KISS theory: keep it simple, stupid.
Right, okay. So I thought you were talking about the band.
So yeah, just keep it simple. Think about what you're doing. Actually, myself and Jason actually spoke about this yesterday, because I threw this to you, Jason, and you were saying, actually, I come in this site and I'd have destinations and go in through that way. And what the interesting point of that conversation was, we both had a thought process of how best to structure the website. Neither of us. Go on, Jason, you jump in.
No. In fact, I was thinking about it coming back from the curry house earlier on after lunch. And in fact, what I was saying, or what I was thinking, is I would tend to organize things in terms of geolocation. So I would have Bonjour LaFrance / name of department / name of town / type of attraction or things to do or whatever it might be, because Google understands things within the context of their geolocation. It knows the Eiffel Tower is in Paris and that Paris is in the 75th department. And it's a very good way for Google, in terms of the structure of the URL, for Google to understand what it is you're talking about and be sure that it's understood what you're talking about. It's also logical for a human being who actually has a little knowledge of geography, but that doesn't stop you in your navigation organizing it in the way that Tristam's suggesting. Your navigation doesn't have to correspond to your URL structure. So in fact, the primary navigation. So in fact, what you could actually have the choice of having one whole section with navigate by region or navigate by place, and then have your departments and your towns with the attractions in one menu, and then a second access through lodging or things to do or whatever it might be. And as a human being, different people might want to access that information in a, or that they might access it logically in a different manner. And we've got a question: if the main audience is not from the USA, does it impact on SEO? If we're talking about France, I mean, I think that's an interesting point. But here it's Bonjour LaFrance, so we're looking at people outside France who want to come to France, and that intent, we need to serve it, and Google needs to serve it. So I'm not 100% clear what the question actually means, but the thing about it is, from what you're saying, Tristam, is that somebody is looking for attractions. Some people might know what they're looking for, the Eiffel Tower, for example. And some people might just be saying, I want to go to Montpellier. What can I do there? So they would be thinking, Montpellier, what do I do? Whereas somebody who's looking for the Eiffel Tower would say, Eiffel Tower, how do I get there? And that's two different approaches from people who are actually looking for the same thing, and you need to serve them both. Go ahead,
no, exactly. And that's, you know, I think that's a good way of looking at it, is, as I said earlier, creating scenarios when you go in and kind of look to audit or, you know, audit your website and your navigation is, you might have someone coming in, as you said, Jason, with a very clear mind, like, I want more information on the Eiffel Tower. And again, if we came in here, attractions, we're looking at tourist offices mainly. And secondary to that, you might come in and go, I want to know about a town or an area, or, I've heard about Montpellier, say, and then you're like, I want to find out more information on that. So how would you answer these questions that people have? And so for both of us, we had this conversation yesterday that really what you need to do is have conversations like this, like me and Jason did, but also look at the data. What are your popular pages? What are popular search terms? Stuff like that, and start to really, work out how to structure your menu navigation in a logical way that's answering people's questions and, hitting the mark, really.
Quick question from Ron at Day. It's about silo structure. Have we seen changes after implementing silo structure? I think every SEO in the industry has had at least one case where the structure was awful. We've put it into nice kind of silos. I mean, for me, it's not really silos. It's having a URL structure that is logical. And this particular site, I've noticed quite a lot of the URLs are at the root level. And I never do that. I encourage my clients to always put pages in a category, because because it's easier to analyze your site. B, Google's going to understand it better because the page is then in context with its parent. When you don't have structure, Google has a lot of trouble understanding what page fits where. And also, you probably don't know. Can we look at the SEMrush audits? Because I really like the way you were doing that. With Bonjour LaFrance, you audited the site?
Yeah, so what I should note for everyone watching is, if you are an SEMrush user, subscriber, or if you're thinking of using SEMrush, what I would do is I suggest that you open up SEMrush, you jump into the projects panel, open up the dashboard, and this is the dashboard for Bonjour LaFrance. And as many of these little sections as you can set up, link Google Search Console, link your Google Analytics, and set these different crawls and backlink audits off on your website. Because if nothing else, this really does give you a great snapshot of how your website's viewed by search engines, and gives you a bit of a roadmap of what to do. We're not going to go into all of these today. I guess they may be covered in future sessions, but let's just jump into the site audit section. And so, as you can see, I ran a site audit, and so I think there was a question actually from ER. Does it mean, when I did the site search, which was, does that mean that 31,400 pages are being indexed by Google? Yes, that is correct. And then jumping back into here, I set the crawl limit at 10,000 pages because I just thought it was a blog. It probably wouldn't be that big. It hit the 10,000 pages limit. What I would then do is probably look to up that crawl limit to understand what's going on. I think when I looked yesterday for the site search, it was actually about 6,400. So there's something not adding up here technically. I would definitely, if this is your website and you're watching, I'd definitely take this away and investigate this a little bit further. Something I also raised with Jason yesterday, which is slightly off topic, but I did, through my hunting around of this website, found that you've got 102 of these mobile links ranking, and I haven't gone in technically to see any more information than what you can see here, but I can see that these URLs are ranking in Google at the moment. It might be that we're waiting for them to disappear because you've made some changes to remove this, but they are there at the moment. So if you're not aware of anything to do with this, I'd probably put that on your list of things to investigate for this site. But yeah, so let's crack.
Well, sorry, that's a sign of bad housekeeping. And
yeah,
bad housekeeping implies that you actually don't pay attention, and that can never be good. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. And so that's why really, this SEMrush software, and certainly this site audit section, is just invaluable, because you can set, I think you can set it daily, weekly, monthly, periodically, set crawls. And then you can compare crawls as well, from what your last crawl was to your next crawl, to see if you are improving. So yeah, I'd say if you're not using it, do use it. As you can see, there's a number of issues that really need to be looked at. But yeah, if we just round off this section of looking at the navigation. So yeah, as I say, for everyone watching, what I would probably do just to keep it simple is build yourself a little navigation. You can do it in a number of ways. You know, you can do it from side to side as I have, or top to bottom. And yeah, start to build out your website's menu navigation in a logical format. Have it printed out like this on a screen. You could discuss it with other people, but then you've also got a paper trail, you know, of what was before, what you're doing now, so you can start to see if your incremental changes are helping your site improve. Yeah, so yeah, if your site's navigation menu starts to look a little bit cluttered, consider organizing your site better by using main headings, then you know, by sub menus and other links categorized below it. Let's jump in and actually have a look at the page speed for this site. Let me just pull up some more links. So there's a number of tools that you can use. What I've done today is I've used Pingdom, GTmetrix, and last but not least, PageSpeed Insights. And they've all loaded up in different tabs. Brilliant. That's embarrassing. Let me just grab that one. And so I think there was previously a question on GTmetrix, so we can have a look at that. I think it was on whether I felt the GTmetrix score was relevant. I don't dive in too heavily into these reports and page speed issues. Why I say that is what I do is I run a number of page speed tools to kind of get an aggregate idea of what the issues are. I try, again, even with, you know, crawling software, keyword ranking software, try to have a look around, and, you know, every piece of software is built differently. So certainly with page speed issues, I've used these three particular tools. There are more, and, you know, hit me up on Twitter afterwards, and I'll be happy to share some of the other ones that you can use. But running this site here, so it seems like you've got a reasonable page speed score here. But as I was saying, this here is an issue that you could probably do yourself, and so that's optimizing images. So you'll just be reducing size or quality just to make sure they load a little bit faster. But what's great with GTmetrix is you can start to see, if I close this quickly, see a priority score or level here. And then what's great, similar to SEMrush, is you can actually have what this means. So you start to get educated whilst you're running these tests over time. So I would have a look through this, if this is your website, start to ascertain what you feel you might be able to tackle. Areas like these, defer parsing of JavaScript, that might be something that's a little bit more high level, and might be worth getting in contact with your own developer or hiring a developer to have a look at some of these issues. And then, you know, keep these test scores saved, so then you can have a look in the future to see again whether you have improved your page speed score. You know, it's saying that the site here is 3.88 meg and took a total time of 17 seconds to load, but we'll have a look at the other tools to see what they're saying. So this one's saying it took about 4.4 seconds. And you can see we've got some similar and slightly different issues here. What's great though, you know, it can tell you that, you know, 2.1 meg of this homepage was taken up by images, script, 35% of that. And so even things like script, you can, if you aren't using Google Tag Manager, I would suggest you do use Google Tag Manager to deploy all your scripts through that. So if you're using Google Analytics, you can put that into Google Tag Manager. I'll probably take a step back. Google Tag Manager basically takes lots of code, whittles it down, and just deploys it in a far easier, manageable format that doesn't slow your website down. So as an example, a lot of websites will have Google Analytics code on their website. They'll have maybe Hotjar, which is a conversion rate optimization tool. And then you start to add on maybe affiliates, stuff like that. all of these little pieces of code in your website's code do start to drag your website down. So something like Google Tag Manager, popping your script through there will, you know, just help your site run a lot smoother. And then if we just jump into the last tab, this gives a slightly different view and score. You know, mobiles coming back with a score of 6 and desktops coming back with a score of 21. And again, what this does is it gives you, you know, a whole bunch of information of what opportunities are here, and, you know, what diagnostics has come back. So I would personally, whoever you are, if you have a website, I would look at least these 3 tools, run your website through it and just see what's coming back. Have a little research, ascertain what your level of knowledge is and whether you can resolve these issues or whether you might need to reach out to someone to help you to resolve these issues. As we said way back at the beginning of this, you know, every second counts. You reduce it by a second here and there. You're making Google happier. You're making users happier. That makes you happier. People want to spend more time on your site. They should hopefully convert better because your website's just, you know, it's streamlined and working perfectly. Yes, Jason, sorry.
One thing I saw across the 3 is 2.1 megs of images is almost certainly too much.
Yeah.
You could certainly reduce that. Think about why you're using so many images and why they're so heavy. Another was the amount of scripts. As you said, lots of cumulative scripts, but also the fact that they're all saying the browser thinks it needs all the scripts in order to actually show the user the page, and in fact it doesn't need all those scripts. You can defer them, which just means push them back to load after the page has displayed and then get the JavaScript to act in. For example, the map, you could have an empty space, have the map load with the JavaScript and all the rest of that behind once the page is displayed for the user, which would make that initial load much faster. And the third one I noticed they all had was the server response time. Having a good host, a hosting provider who has a good server that's fast, you're not sharing it with thousands of other sites that could potentially mean that any given moment it can't give you the resources necessary to deliver your pages. And hosting isn't that expensive. It's not such a big deal. It's not a game changer. And having a fast host on a reliable platform, phenomenally important because it will save a lot of headaches all through your site and throughout the year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, back, well, probably, so I'm like 37 now. So when I was 18, I created like my first website. And I had no idea of servers, any of this stuff that we're discussing now, actually. I was just building websites.
So you have been in this for 20 years. 18 to 37, 19 years. So you started about the same time as me.
Yeah, but SEO came a bit later. It was just, it's an interesting process of like, oh, I'll make a website. And then it was like learning how to get people to find your website. But yeah, even back then, I never, you know, I just basically went for the cheapest deal of hosting. And that seemed like the most logical way to go about getting hosting. It was like, well, they're doing a great deal, I'll go with them. And as you highlighted, that might not be the best way. So yeah, go out, research where your server is, you know, how fast it's running, how much up and down time it has. I know companies that I've worked with previously have a lot of server issues and downtime, and that can cause so many problems. Whether that's problems for users, clearly clicking through, the website's not working, but also if you're running PPC ads and you're funneling traffic through to your site and the website's not loading. So you can start to see, again, page speed issues, servers, why all of this stuff really, really matters. And as much as we want to make Google and search engines happy, I'll stress this probably 100 times more through this webinar, but please think of the user first. Always think of the user first is what I say. So let's jump on. So let's have a look at thin content for Bonjour LaFrance. Let's just bring back. Got the bad boys down. Little sneak peek of what we'll be looking at next. And so when we look at thin content, we need to identify, you know, thin content pages, and some of that can be done through SEMrush. So if we just jump back in here, we go to issues. So obviously I've run my crawl. It's brought back all this information. And then you've got these kind of 3 key areas. So you've got errors, warnings, and notices, and you've got this lovely little search box. So I'm just going to go for low word count. Spell that correctly. And so there's no pages that have a low word count. Awesome. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we've got these sort of weird, thin pages with duplicated content and stuff. So yeah, always make sure you write between 200 and 300 meaningful words on a page. Don't just write words for the sake of writing them. I mean, Jason, what are your thoughts on the minimum amount of wording? Because
Well,
doing research, one set of people say this, one set of people say that.
Well, I've had a featured snippet with 35 words.
Nice.
So it is possible to rank. I mean, it was a trick, and it was a very specific query, but the 35 words answered the query, so it's fine. And importantly, Yoast from the plugin Yoast, I was talking to him about it, and he said, "Oh, but you have to have at least 200 words because otherwise you can't create the context that Google needs to understand what the page is actually saying." And there's a double side there, because the site I was using was so well structured. I was talking about the structure earlier on. It was a page that had a parent page that was very clear, and a parent page of that parent page that was very clear. The context was inherited. So we had a situation where I could do it. I don't say do it. I don't say this is a good idea. Yeah. But if 35 words gives the answer, 35 words give the answer. But I would agree with Yoast. If you really want to give context to Google so it can truly understand that you have an answer that can truly satisfy its users, less than 200 words, you're going to have trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
But I disagree quite a lot with people who say you have to write 1,000 words. Especially on mobile. I think it's important to remember mobile. I can't read 1,000 words on mobile.
I don't want to read 1,000 words on mobile. I think that's more it, isn't it?
And I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I mean, basically, if I want a quick answer, if I say, what color is the sun? I don't want 1,000 words. I want a few words that says it's orange or yellow or whatever color, and there might be a debate about it. If I then want to learn more, maybe you should write a second article that discusses why we think it's yellow, or some people think it's orange, and that would be on another article with 300 words. And then if I really want to know more about it and I want to get into astrophysics, I'll read a book.
Exactly. And I think that nicely loops back to what we were saying earlier, where it's like, think of the user first. You know, we've just discussed that there's studies and tests that say between 200 and 300 words. There's other studies that say long form content works best. But as you've just given the example, what was it? What color is the sun?
Yeah, I don't know why I
need
used that.
No, but I like that. But we don't need 300. We don't need 1,000 words. We just need a simple answer. And so just think of the user, as well as obviously optimizing for search engines.
Quickly cutting in there, in fact, I've had a very, very successful set of SEO FAQ section. Basically, what we did was identified very specific questions and gave very specific helpful answers on eSIMs. And we've managed to go from no visits at all in December to 2,000 or 3,000 visits a day.
Wow.
In 6 months. But because we've written incredibly helpful, precise answers on a topic we know incredibly well and for which we're authoritative, which is eSIMs. Obviously, the upsell is that we then sell data plans for eSIMs, which I'm actually using today. It's called UBG, a bit of promotion for them because they're really good people. And I'm using their network to do this webinar. And I think people forget, for webinars at least, is that these things work really, really well when you're in countries like France. But that's a really good example of specific answers to specific questions, and it works really well. But if somebody was searching for how does an eSIM actually work, that's useless. I need 300, 1,000 words to actually start to understand it. Sorry, go ahead now, Tristam.
Yeah, exactly. And then just sort of, I guess, just to bring it back round on what we're talking about here with thin content. So, does
I've forgotten about that.
Does all the content on your site need to exist and be live? Although there was no warnings in the site audit that we ran for low word count, you could still be diluting your site's value by burning through your crawl budget. The more pages you give Google to crawl, the more work it has to do. If pages the search engine crawls aren't useful for the user, then Google will have a problem in wasting its time on your content. So, we can look at things like, extremely similar pages can be combined, using canonical tags. Sometimes it's a good idea to remove them completely from the search engine results, just because they have little value. What content can go, what can be created, what can be expanded on, and what can be combined. And so, how can we have a look at that? If we
we're actually at the 50-minute mark, and I hadn't noticed the time passing because it's so much fun. And that's the thing, when you're an SEO, this is actually a lot of fun. And we're looking at a phenomenal number of details that you can improve, and we want to improve all the details we can and pick the ones that we can actually affect. And that's what's going to push your SEO forward. It's solving this problem by problem by problem and moving the needle a little bit every day and being persistent and consistent. I love that. Persistent, consistent gets you the monkey, is what they say in South Africa. Can we move on to the next site, or do you have something else?
No, of course. So I was just going to round it off by saying, with some of the thin content issues, you have duplicate title tags, content issues. And as you can see just in front of you here, I will highlight some of the issues, of duplicate title tags, content, etc. If I was Bonjour LaFrance, I would run an audit in here and I would start to look at tackling some of these issues. But yes, let's move on to find me here. I had a great pleasure looking around this website. It makes me want to go on holiday massively. Look at the images. They are great. Slightly jealous. But again, so I come in, so back to header navigation. I come in with a thought process that I want to, complete a couple of tasks on the website. And before I actually moved on to doing that, what I noticed was, awesome, there's actually a Spanish version of the site. That's great. So let's have a little click on that. And just because I can't speak Spanish, I'm going to get Google to translate it in English. But what I noticed was actually you've only got the 2 links in the head and menu navigation. That might be like a business decision you've made, or it might be a time or resource issue. If that's the case, I would work towards, and if you have enough Spanish traffic and you want to expand on that, I would definitely have a Spanish version of your website and an English language version of your website. The website's awesome. It seems a shame that you're not delivering that to more Spanish native speakers, but that again might be something you've made a decision on, saying, well, I don't actually get that much Spanish traffic, so I didn't want to expand on that, which is fine. But so we've got fairly straightforward menu navigation: home, destinations, photo, gear, our work templates, about us, and contact. Brilliant. So I've just had a little look through the site. I've been to Bali, but let's pretend I haven't. So I want to go through and find destination Bali, and I want to find out as much information as possible. So we jump into destinations, and I was hoping there'd be a drop-down box, but it's a cool map here. Okay, so it's in Asia. So bearing in mind, I've clicked twice now. So I'm in Asia. And so I've now got to scroll through. Okay, so here we are, Bali. But what I would suggest, so we've got best hotels in Ubud, lovely place. What I'd suggest actually is this here in the search by category. I would look to rejig your navigation with destinations being more of a drop down. So I can actually jump in, go destinations, Asia, Indonesia, Bali type thing. So just really making it straightforward for me to get to the content I need. And then that can actually be, taken on further. I was just having a think from when I audited the site, but you've got photography gear. And depending, if you want to look to try and expand on content, there's some great information here, but under photography gear, it might be, like photography gear for, walking around a city, or photography gear for underwater filming and photography, because you cover some great camera equipment here. There's a drone and there's, GoPro here. So it might be that actually over time you want to get more finite. You found some, keywords you've been researching that actually you find you can start to build more content about your photography gear. So that's just an idea of how you could kind of expand on this menu. But on the whole, I do really like the menu. It works pretty well. One thing I did notice, and I just need to quickly get a 404, is to get more ideas. What you've got is a great search box here. So let's just type in Bali. And what's going on here is your search box, which I could only find through actually creating an error on your site, actually pulls up all the barley information here. But what you notice is up in the search bar here, you get this little S. And what you can do is in Google Analytics, you can go in to site search data. Let me just jump into that. Here we go. So if you set up site search to be collected in Google Analytics, so it's as simple as going into your settings for your view and adding in for the site search settings, adding in the S. So it starts to collect the data that get put into the site search box. This is, by the way, a Google demo analytics account. It's none of my clients' data. But what you can see is if you were then collecting this data, jump into behavior, site search, search terms, you can see all the search terms people are using on your website. Why is this useful? You might start to find that people can't find content and are consistently searching for a particular category. For example, say I sell black t-shirts. I'm a black t-shirt website, but there's a lot of people that were searching for white t-shirts, so much so that it might actually make me start to sell white t-shirts, or say I just sell all colors of t-shirts, but you can only really find black and gray t-shirts from the homepage and searching through the navigation, but people go straight to the search box and type in white t-shirts. Again, that might highlight to me that there's a navigation issue, that people aren't finding certain content. So for find me here, you might find that people say hitting your search box for typing in barley or actually other locations that they may not have found on the website. So this could either lead you to recreate your menu navigation or start to add more sections to your navigation. So yeah, were any questions on that, Jason, whilst I'm
No. I love the idea of looking at what people are actually searching for on your site. I mean, your example about lodging and accommodation earlier on would be that if people are searching for accommodation because they don't understand what lodging means, I mean, it might be a little bit extreme, but it is a great way to highlight as well that your navigation isn't clear in the terms of the wording. But as you said, in actually terms of finding things, if they're searching for things because they can't find it in the menus, but also the wording, I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah,
but,
so really, just some simple changes on this website, but for all sites and everyone watching at the moment, activate that. I think I'll just quickly show you here because I can't help myself. So if you go into view settings, scroll down, and it's actually in the query parameter, you'll want to put this S in there. And then when you go back in to look at the site search usage and site search terms, that will start to pull in all this awesome site search data that people are using on your site. And certainly for Bonjour LaFrance, you have site search on your site. If you haven't checked out this information, it might be very useful to you.
Brilliant. That's incredibly practical. That's a great point. And now we're talking. We keep having questions put at the bottom of the screen about the site speed. Talking about really fast themes. I mean, that's a big question about WordPress. WordPress tends to be quite slow. Fast themes, slow themes, plugin bloat. Can you just go through very quickly the very common WordPress problems with the site speeds itself?
Well, the common problems that we found with these sites, in
general, plugin bloat, sticking in lots of plugins, thinking, I'll have all the bells and whistles and have my site with all these incredible things going on. There's a big danger of ending up with a very slow site because you keep adding things.
Well, because my mind's gone off on one slightly. Also, just talking about plugins, always be careful to only use updated and plugins that you need. That's right. Imperative. But yeah, plugins slow your site, huge images slow your site. I don't have a list of the top 10 WordPress issues in front of me. I don't know, Jason, if you've got any commonality WordPress issues you want to just throw into the...
Yeah, what I like using Cloudflare, and I think in the international travel environment, it's a content distribution network, and what it does is it takes the delivery of the actual elements of your page, the images, the HTML, the JavaScript, the CSS, and puts it on servers nearer to your users, and that immediately helps with speed. They also have great caching systems. They have very fast servers. So I would recommend, and it's a really easy plugin to install on WordPress. I tend to use Cloudflare as my go-to first solution to try to get things faster without investing much time or effort, and it generally helps quite a lot. Beyond that, as you said, don't have plugins you don't need. Check the speed of the theme before you install it. If it's already installed and it's really slow and it was badly coded, you might have to change theme, but a good rule of thumb, if it's free, it's probably not very good. So think about paying for a theme or having it developed for you properly. If it is free, run it through the mill. Make sure that you know whether it's fast or it's slow before you install it, before you invest the infrastructure of your content into something. It's not, oh, I think that looks good, I think it's going to be fun. It's, I have tested it and I know it suits, it looks great, and it's fast and it's reliable.
Definitely, couldn't agree more. And as I see, time is steamrolling away. We'll jump into page speed issues. And so, what I did again with all the sites, just ran them through these three particular tools.
I mean, that already looks much better to me.
Well, we've got a relatively smaller size page that's loading. It's loaded in a reasonably low time, which is great. So I would say probably most of these issues I would have a developer look at, depending on what your skill set is. But as I said, common issues that come up, serve scaled images. I think, just having a look here. So basically you're on that website, you're serving images which are slightly too large. And then the suggestion here is, you can reduce it by 83% and to serve the right sized image. And when you're looking at, the size of the page, it's recorded here as that, and then slightly more here. But, that although they're only small changes doing these couple of images, due to the fact that your total page size isn't very large, that would therefore actually be quite a significant change. So, it's imperative to not only do a site audit, but check your website speed on a regular basis, depending on how you work. As you was just saying there, Jason, you might have uploaded a new theme that you weren't necessarily thinking about too heavily, or plugins, or, et cetera, et cetera. You just slap extra bolts and bells and whistles onto your website without checking the site speed from time to time, even if that's just once a year. It makes me shudder saying that, but even if you're just checking it once a year, please do it, because you'll get a better result. You'll make everybody happy using your website, and Google will look at you slightly more favorably.
But that's a very good point. I mean, it's not because you tested your site for speed 3 months ago or 4 months ago that it's still fast, because you change things, you add your bells and whistles, and it is a good idea to keep those checks regular, to make sure that you haven't changed something that's really slowed it down and creating problems. Please do. Which is why, being crawled by SEMrush on a regular basis is a very good idea. Yeah,
definitely. I stressed it earlier, and I stress it again. Using SEMrush, and just jumping back in, find me here. Setting up this projects panel. There's the projects. Setting up this projects panel is, is really imperative. Oh, come on. Slow connection. But yes, this dashboard, it's imperative to set this up and, set this on some form of a frequency. Again, I don't know what size your teams or whether you're individuals creating these blogs, but if you look at more sort of like e-commerce and enterprise size websites, there's huge amounts of changes going on a website, whether that's SEO, updates from developers. So again, that's where it becomes even more imperative to put these periodical checks in place. And even some of the most well-known brands and companies, I can say, don't do this sort of stuff. But as you said, Jason, sometimes it's about getting those tiny little pieces, that build the whole puzzle And if you can do a lot of these little things, it really does make a difference. Sorry, I felt like you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking about a really quick check on site speed is looking in Search Console. It's actually got a tab. If you go to Search for Console, you look at that tab, it will show you the pages that it thinks are slow. Obviously, that's Google's point of view. It's a very good way just to keep an eye on it without wasting too much time, without having to do full audits. Just keep an eye on if the red, basically red is bad, green is good, orange is okay, but probably could be a lot better, or definitely could be a lot better. If your red is going up and up and up, start thinking about doing an audit and getting a professional in to help you.
Yeah, okay, again, I couldn't agree more. And so, yeah, you know, adding that into, you know, I would say just check your site once a month, check it in SEMrush, check these page speed tools. And, you know, and I hadn't had access to Google Search Console for this webinar, but definitely check your Google Search Console for multiple things, but certainly the area you just discussed, Jason, you know, at least once a month. You know, Google Search Console is your portal and communication tool with Google itself. So use it, don't lose it.
Okay, brilliant.
So if we have a look at thin content for this site, again, jump into issues. So we have a look at low word count. And so we've got 34 pages. Let's just have a quick look through. So there's quite a lot of category pages here. And the ones I picked out, let me just grab that. Ones I picked out. So we've got templates, which is just saying it's a little bit low. And that might be something you can just start adding a little bit more content just to sort of direct and be a bit more finite and, you know, what you want people to do and what these templates are about, just adding a bit more context to that page. And then there was also these types of pages. So your kind of category pages, which I felt should be kept, but they're just missing out on a little bit of information. So I've really enjoyed reading about the Bahamas experience. And so it's a category page for the Bahamas. That's great. We can click through, but why not give us just a little intro into this is the Bahamas, you know, section of the website. You can have some content, you can have some, you know, predefined links in there that can actually jump people into other articles. That's really important. But yeah, I really feel like this page is missing out on just sort of an explanation of what this page is, why we're here, and what you, Find Me Here, can give the audience and the reader.
I think that's a brilliant point. And I think we also forget that if somebody comes here from Google, which is the aim of the show, is to get people onto this particular page, let's say, from Google, I have no idea where I am, what you can do for me, and what you're actually presenting to me. And thinking about that context, the fact that I've just come from Google, I've landed on your site, it's a great opportunity to actually say who you are and what you do and what you're offering people. And a lot of my clients forget that. And a quick question about content delivery network. Could I recommend the best I already have? It's Cloudflare. It's only because I use it from WordPress and it's so simple to use. And we're looking at WordPress sites at the moment. And yes, it does make sense to use them and it's free. I can't see a reason not to use it other than being a bit lazy. Carry on now, Tristam.
And so, yeah, just carrying on sort of thin content, but how we can bolster certain content. And I don't know whether anyone's aware of the SEO content template, which is in SEMrush. It's fantastically useful. So what I've done is I've actually just taken a page of content, and it's about the Bahamas, the Bahamas in 2 weeks, a travel itinerary. And so what we can do is I've gone through, I've taken the page content and literally just dumped it in here. I've gone through and looked through the keyword research section of SEMrush, and that gives us what keywords are ranking for this particular page. So I punch that in, I punch this content in, I clicked go, and what's great is it gives me SEO recommendations. So these were the 3 keywords it said this page was ranking for, and I think they're all kind of like in the 60, 70 ranking mark. So there's obviously a high level of improvement there. But what's great with this tool is it gives you, 10 10 examples of sites that rank for 1 week in Bahamas, Bahamas travel itinerary, all these competitors. You've got other related keywords you can be looking at, backlinks you can go and get it from, go and acquire from. Then it's actually giving us these 3 keywords and the search results for competitors that are coming up. So you're really starting to draw in more and more information of how we can improve a page, how we can bolster out. This page in particular isn't a thin content page, but I just wanted to show you guys how this tool can actually, you can take it away after this and start to build on the content you've got, and you'll see that we can actually start to build new content on the back of this.
Yeah, and I love that as well. You can actually build on the content you've got, make it better, and then think, oh, and there's a topic I could cover that's related to this initial topic. Create a great page about that, link between the two, and you've got this wonderful ecosystem that's going to be pleasing to Google and incredibly helpful to your users.
Exactly.
I love saying that.
And so, it gives you this great score here. I'm not going to go too deep into the tool. It gives you, your word target. What's great is it gives you, title issues, and it's saying, oh, we should be using at least one of our target keywords in the title. It gives us information on splitting long paragraphs. All sentences are easy to read. Recommended keywords. And what I really liked was, let me just find the section. Let me click through. Get ideas for your headline in our topic research tool. So if you click that, this tool loads up. And so I've looked at further research on 1 week in the Bahamas. Now I realized the article was stating 2 weeks, but 1 week ranks, and it's having a look at opportunities here. And so what this does, it picks out related topics. Now I see that there's day trips here that could be something that could be discussed. And then I think it was in here, it says, yeah, how much should I save for a vacation in the Bahamas? Now, in this actual piece of content, it quite clearly states, we tried to budget as much as possible and spent $100 to $150 a night for accommodation and spent double that eating every day. So to me, not only bolstering the content and, making it that particular piece of content rank higher, there's actually questions that SEMrush is being able to show us that are being asked, saying, how much should I save for a vacation in the Bahamas? So you could actually have this section here on budgets, keep it, but say if you want to find out more about how much you should save, to have a trip in the Bahamas, boom, you've now got a whole new section of content. And just think of all of these, getting around, how to get to the Bahamas, have a look through this tool and start to see, actually, could this piece of content actually start seeding a number of other pieces of content? Because I was looking at this website kind of going, well, I guess you're restricted with content to the places that you physically visited. And obviously with the situation we're in at the moment, traveling isn't, it's starting to pick up, but it's not as easy as it has been. But the thing is, through further research, you might find questions that are being asked about places you visited that you already have the answers to. And so this one piece of content could become, another 2, 3, 5 pieces of individual content that can all interlink to each other, which again, done in the right way, Google loves, keeps the user on your site longer as well, searching around. And again, Google loves that. And obviously users want to spend time on your site if it's useful. So yeah, this is a great way of how to bolster content you've got if you're suffering with thin content issues, but also, just for everyone watching, how to then go away and create new content. Any questions around that, Jason, whilst I move on?
Yeah, well, we're going to have to move on to the third site fairly quickly.
Yeah.
There was a quick random SEO question, which is, can you use the same paragraphs in different blog posts? The answer to that is, I can't see any circumstances where you'd copy paste an entire paragraph. What Tristam was saying is, you start a paragraph about the budget, then you have a link through to a more complete article. You wouldn't have that exact same text at the beginning because you're going to be expanding on that. So that wouldn't be a useful thing too. But there is a very common misunderstanding that people have, is that you can't have a block of content that's the same on every page or same on multiple pages. And the truth is you can. It's if it's an aside, I mean, I love semantic HTML5, and basically if the piece of content that you have on multiple pages is not central to the content itself, i.e. it's additional information that is relevant. And an example would be in the Bahamas section, you might have a section that says handy travel tips, simple list of travel tips for the Bahamas, that is actually relevant on every single page. You wouldn't put it in the middle of your article. You would tend to put it at the end of the article as a supplement, or in the sidebar, as a supplementary piece of information for that section. So the answer is, you don't want to copy paste paragraphs into multiple articles in the middle of them, but you can have that duplicated paragraph or chunk of content across multiple pages if it's relevant and useful, and it's an aside or at the bottom. Please carry on.
And so, yeah, as you just noted there, Jason, we are racing through time. So this is the final site, Mark My Adventure.
Yeah, and the site belongs to somebody called Mark, but that's not the case, is it?
No, it's not the case. And so there, again, came in with a scenario. I wanted to find a destination and understand, more about destinations through this website. And so I thought, well, obviously I'll start off with my adventure. But as we can quickly see, it's a very extensive menu. Just to show you how extensive it is, if I bring it down, you can see, because I've reduced the size to sort of a more mobile-y view, right, you can start to see this is everything in the menu. And if I was looking at this on mobile, where am I going? What am I doing? So I pulled the menu apart, chucked it into a Word document just so I could have a look. And what I started to find was there was information on visas for Indian people traveling around the world. Now, to me, that's, a real useful piece of information. So rather than coming in with like my adventure, it would be having a look at things like going in with destinations, travel tips and resources. Looking at under that, you can look at visas, cheap flights, planning a trip, etc. Something myself and Jason, we discussed yesterday, there's a random tab here, which is interesting. And then, so we've got, why should we choose Brave as a browser? Now, as we were discussing yesterday, Jason, it's all about relevance. And if this is a travel and adventure blog, talking about a browser seems slightly off kilter and not in keeping with the rest of the the website. So it might be that something like this is removed. But then the next blog down is about the 4 countries that will give you financial help on your trip, which we actually discussed in depth yesterday, which was quite interesting. Neither of us knew about this. But again, how am I finding that through my adventure? Quite a lot of information to see under that tab. I'm probably not going to ever click on a tab called random personally. So I would look to rejig the menu navigation. Now, obviously this is quite extensive. So let me just give you a little example of a site I found, which I quite like. Yeah,
I mean, the financial help article, I found that incredibly interesting and
awesome,
useful.
isn't it?
And the visas one, I mean, that could be under helpful tips and tricks for traveling. I mean, that could be a category for me. I mean, it doesn't belong in random because, random doesn't make sense to me as a human being, and it doesn't make sense to Google. So you're really not doing yourself any favors with that. I mean, it's fun, and I can see your point, but it's not doing you any favors. And now my adventures, as you say, it's just so full of stuff, and it's not organized in a way that I can actually think, well, if I'm looking for that particular article about how I can get financial help to go on holiday from a country, which is brilliant, where would I find it? I've got absolutely no idea.
And again, if you came in to that page of, how do I get financial help to travel? You came through there from Google, but you went, oh, cool. What else? What other information has this website got? We're sort of going, oh, okay, because people get kind of brain overload as well. And sometimes, this drop-down menu might sort of scare people off a little bit. The information is awesome, but it just needs to be recategorized. And I came across this website, which I actually found was very simple in the way that they've laid out their menu navigation. So example, travel, well, we kind of understand what that is. And then, you've got by location, you've got travel itineraries, obviously this is information about solo traveling, bucket list, vacation destinations. Then you've got lifestyle travel tips as well as other categories. Now, possibly just with looking at those tabs in themselves or similar related tabs, we could actually rejig this whole website to just read and navigate a whole lot better. And I'd love to know, I think it's Anand, if you're watching this and you do take on changing the structure of your website, I'd love to know what the results were from how the website works now to how the website works in the future. Because I
could come back to an example when somebody was asking about, have we seen results from siloing? I mean, siloing and just reorganizing. I take that to be reorganizing in a logical set of columns and sections. This would be an interesting example because it's so random, and the word random is brilliant. My Adventures is a random menu for me too. If he does reorganize it, what are the effects? That would be very interesting to see.
It'd just be fascinating to know. And so, I'll end off there because I know we are steaming through time, but you can quite quickly see we just want to help the user, and we want Google to find the content on the website as easily as possible. So break this site down into a spreadsheet or something like that and start to logically think like a user. What are the steps they want to take? Can
you show us the My Life's a Movie one again, just to make sure that people have got that? Because it is really interesting, because what that person has done is said travel and then organized it by continent and then country, which is what I was saying earlier on about the geographical organization of a site, which is logical for us as human beings, logical for Google. And then lifestyle, you can fit pretty much anything into there. I mean, even your browser article could potentially go lifestyle. I wouldn't complain. I'd say, okay, that's your lifestyle. You love browsers.
And this is just another example where, again, they've gone through location-based, just keeping it really simple. I just love it. So, please take this information and just restructure it in a more logical format. And I think you'll see some really good wins from it. I really do.
Brilliant. Okay, right. Can you wrap up Mark My Adventure in the next 5 minutes, and then we can
so I would say I'm not going to go through the page speed for this one, but if you're watching, jump into Pingdom, GT Metrics, Google Page Speed. There are some other ones. Hit me up on Twitter, and I'm happy to share all the resources that I use.
I get the feeling that you've got a little preference for Mark My Adventure. It's tickled your fancy, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I just I'm not going to overtalk it.
So but you'll be able to help. I mean, Anand, although we're not going through all the details, hit Tristam up on Twitter, because he obviously wants to help you, because I agree with him. The site's brilliant. It's loads of great content. All three sites are brilliant. And this one, it's just such a pity that it's so randomly organized.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, we've just had a message from Anand saying, sure, would love to rejig the menu to suit the user. Awesome. As I say, please let me know. And then Paloma from Find Me Here. If you say you've just joined us late, no worries. This video is going to be posted back up, so you'll be able to watch all the information back. And for anyone watching, I'm on Twitter at Tristam Jarman. I will drop that link in there towards the end because it's a bit tricky to spell my name. Oh no, it's on the screen, so obviously you'll be able to get that.
The trick for the Twitter handle is to put an @ at the beginning and remove the space between Tristam and Jarman, and you're away. So take a screenshot, which is what I've just done, and then you can build the Twitter handle from the screenshot, which is absolutely lovely.
You can tell my brain's firing on all cylinders today, can't you? So in terms of, just wrapping this up, looking at this. So again, ran a site crawl.
Oh, right, brilliant. We need to look at the
just have a look at the thing
content page.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Wait for this to load, everybody. So we've got Mark My Adventure.
Brilliant. Okay. Because Mark My Adventure has relatively few pages. We only got 770.
So in total there's 871 crawled out of 10,000. So it's
just to be clear, the out of 10,000 is you that means that you told SEMrush it could potentially crawl up to 10,000. It doesn't mean to say you think Mark has got has got 10,000 pages. It just means you set the limit, say, so that I don't run out of my crawl budget on SEMrush. you can crawl 10,000 pages. There are only 871 pages.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of gauge a good idea when setting up a crawl just by doing the, as I say, doing this site search for whatever site, and it will give you an idea of how many pages indexes, how many pages Google is indexing for you to then be able to decide on what you should set your page crawl level at. Okay. So yeah, let's have a look at what SEMrush has thrown up in terms of low word count. And we looked at this yesterday, myself and Jason. It's predominantly AMP pages. And predominantly we're seeing sort of like page 11 come up when we click through to the page.
Yeah, I mean, it's pagination. Because we've got this categorization problem, we've got the pagination that goes through to page 11. So presumably they're all uncategorized behind. I mean, I don't know how it's actually set up, but yeah, those pagination things, A, you need to know index them, and B, if you've categorized correctly, you shouldn't have, especially with a site this size, you shouldn't have 11 different pages for that pagination system.
Exactly. So yeah, I'd have a look through here, you know, see which ones you want to not be indexing anymore, and come up with a solution for this, because a whole bunch of these just, yeah, they just shouldn't be live. And so, yeah, in terms of sort of just rounding this off, really, you know, again, as we look to find me here, any content pages where you're like, this is a little bit low on content, you know, there was a short process, which, you know, I may make a video on in the future, actually, just of how to, yeah, expand that piece of content or create new pieces of relevant content for your audience. Always looking at your competitors too will give you a good steer. You might start to find ideas, as we said, that have not been covered, and could start to create and attract new searches and new audiences. So yeah, we'll wrap that up there.
Perfect. Great. Well, in fact, we have the person who ran the site, the Spanish and English version. They were saying they started it off and then kind of didn't really know how to manage both the Spanish and the English. I mean, I would say that if you can't develop, if there's a time constraint, you can't develop both correctly, just stick to English, or just stick to Spanish if you've got a great Spanish audience. But yeah, but there is a question of resources. How much time do you have? And developing two things half-heartedly or half-baked isn't going to work. Developing one thing incredibly well and dealing with all those tiny details we were talking about with the British cycling team, who did win the Olympics at one point a few years ago, due to actually focusing on those tiny details. Focus on one project where you can truly do credit to that project with the time that you can accord to it. You can so I mean, in your particular case, I would say, okay, go for the English version, make it perfect. Yeah. And then when you're rich from all the brilliant traffic you've brought in, thanks to Tristam's advice and the affiliate deals that you've got going through the affiliate platforms, then maybe you can say, well, I'll employ somebody and they can do the Spanish version. We can duplicate it once the first one is perfect. Brilliant. So there you go. Brilliant advice. Wonderful stuff. We actually answered all the questions as we went through. We've got 2.25 minutes left of the hour and a half that you said, Tristam, you wanted to speak for.
Yeah, that's pretty good at timing. Yeah, I just want to add lastly onto that bit you were just saying about, you know, where time constraints and resources get pulled. You know, it's also like a personal motivation thing that, you know, if you're creating a site, you want to be motivated, you want to be happy about what you're doing, and not kind of like, you know, the Spanish thing's a little bit on the side, I'm not so happy with that. I'm not saying you are or aren't, Paloma, but yeah, I want you and everyone to be impassioned with what you do. And sometimes, you know, I've seen it just with a number of companies, people have too many things to do, and therefore their enthusiasm and passion starts to wane. So, you know, if that's the case, yeah, focus on getting the English site up and running to the level that makes you happy and keeps you motivated doing this, because, you know, it's all out of your own time at the end of the day. And then, yeah, as Jason said, maybe, you know, dependent on a number of factors, start to look at breaking out the Spanish side of the site at a later date. But yeah, it's all about keeping motivated.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tristam. That was a wonderful first episode with the worst start to any series ever. which I'm now proud of. I think that's going to be a fun moment that we will all remember. It's one of those things that when it happens, it's a disaster, but as a memory, when you look back on it, it will be a funny story.
Exactly.
You were a great first guest. That was absolutely awesome. That was amazing advice you've given. You've been really kind. And what I love about this show and what you've brought to it today is that we're not criticizing. We're trying to bring help and gentle, kind, helpful information that you can actually implement and you can actually do something. So it's an analysis and an audit of your site with your best interests at heart. We're kind people, aren't we, Tristam? And
exactly. Well, we're here to help, aren't we?
Yes, exactly. So you can watch, the audience, you can watch this back. It's going to be on replay. Please do. There are loads of things in there that I've already forgotten because there was so much information that Tristam provided. Watch it back, sit back, think about what you can do. And as Tristam was saying, it's a labor of love for, I think, all three of the people who are running the sites here. It's a labor of love. Keep it that way, make it as good as you can, and make some money into the bargain. Thank you very much, Tristam.
Thank you very much.